One is that Windows security tends to rely somewhat heavily on being able to connect to Microsoft servers and access malware data stored in the cloud. A recent AV comparables test noted that Windows security only detected around 2/3 of threats when its internet connection was lost, which lagged behind most paid competitors, which tend to store more of the resources they need locally.
Your computer is screaming at you. Red alert, urgent warning. Windows Defender says your BIOS is dangerous and outdated. You need to update it immediately or your machine is at risk. Your heart rate jumps. You call IT, IT calls their manager. The manager calls the security team. Everyone panicking, everyone scrambling. And then someone figures out the truth. Nothing was wrong. Your computer was perfectly fine the entire time. Windows Defender just made the whole thing up. Not on one computer, not in one company. Across thousands of organizations worldwide, simultaneously. All victims of a fake emergency generated by the very tool that was supposed to protect them. This is what happened. And this is why people are finally asking the question they were afraid to ask before. Can you actually trust Windows Defender? The BIOS panic that exposed everything.
It's called the Windows Defender Security Scam, or just Windows Security Scam Pop-Up. And we're gonna discuss what it is, what it looks like, how to get rid of it, and how to avoid it, and probably why you found it in the first place. So let's jump in.
Your computer has been locked up. Your IP address was used without your knowledge or consent to visit websites that contains identity theft virus. To unlock the computer, please call support immediately.
Picture an IT team on a normal Thursday morning. Suddenly their security dashboard lights up. Every Dell computer in the building is flagging a critical vulnerability. The BIOS, the deep software your computer runs before Windows even loads, is reportedly outdated and dangerous. In security terms, a compromised BIOS is basically the worst case scenario. It means an attacker could own your machine at the deepest possible level. So IT teams do what they're trained to do. They take it seriously. They start pulling computers offline. They start investigating whether thousands of machines need emergency firmware updates. And here's the terrifying part about rushing a firmware update. If it goes wrong, the computer doesn't turn back on. Ever. It becomes a very expensive paperweight. Except none of that was necessary, because the BIOS was fine on every single machine. Windows Defender had a bug in its code, a mistake in how it reads and compares version numbers. It looked at a perfectly healthy Dell computer, misread the firmware information, and decided it was dangerous. Then it screamed that conclusion to every IT security dashboard it was connected to. Microsoft confirmed the bug themselves and quietly published a service notice that most regular users would never even see. The internal reference number was DZ1163521 if you want to look it up. The fix took days to roll out, days during which IT teams were left manually checking thousands of computers themselves because they couldn't trust Defender's alerts anymore. Think about the cost. A company with a few thousand computers gets hit with this. Every flagged machine needs manual verification. Security staff working overtime chasing a ghost emergency. Employees confused and nervous about whether their computers are safe. Help desks overwhelmed. Productivity collapsing. All because of a coding mistake inside the tool businesses pay for specifically to avoid exactly this kind of chaos. And Microsoft's response? A quiet patch. No public apology, no acknowledgement of the disruption caused. Just a note saying engineers were reviewing the impacting code bug to understand how it was introduced. Corporate language for we'll look into it, then move on and hope everyone forgets. This is not a one-off story.
Viruses, and how your antivirus lies to you constantly. There's a lot of false positives out there, and we need to talk about how antiviruses work, and specifically what has happened to me specifically. I feel like I've almost been targeted, even though that's not the case. I've recently had a Trojan flag that's happened on the actual toolbox, Windows toolbox. Windows Defender.
Here's where it gets important, because if this was one isolated mistake, you'd shrug and move on. Software has bugs. It happens, but this isn't isolated. Windows Defender has been doing versions of this for years, and the incidents keep getting swept under the rug. Remember when Defender decided Google Chrome was ransomware? That actually happened. A bad update went out and suddenly millions of Windows users were getting critical security warnings every time they opened their browser. Not some sketchy downloaded file. Chrome, the world's most popular browser. Defender flagged it as dangerous malware belonging to a ransomware gang. People panicked. Some let Defender quarantine their browser files and then couldn't open Chrome at all. Microsoft fixed it eventually. No big press conference, no accountability, just a quiet update and silence. Then there was the time Defender started deleting application shortcuts off people's desktops and taskbars, not quarantining them as suspicious, deleting them. IT administrators across businesses woke up to find that shortcuts to their work applications had simply vanished overnight. Microsoft had to publish special recovery scripts so companies could get back what their own security tool had destroyed. The tool built to protect your files was destroying them instead. And it keeps going. Defender flagging legitimate website links as malicious. Defender marking Office update files as ransomware behavior. Defender blocking Google Chrome update downloads as suspicious activity. Each incident gets a patch. Each patch gets forgotten. And then a new incident pops up a few months later with a different name and the same basic problem. Defender getting things catastrophically wrong with real consequences for real people. The damage nobody talks about.
There is no tech that's going to protect you. Sure, it's going to warn you. Sure, it may even block the link to the website. But if you dismiss those warnings and proceed anyway...
What's interesting is that every time Microsoft fixes one of these false alarm disasters, the conversation ends there. Bug fixed, crisis over. But nobody properly accounts for the damage that builds up underneath the surface over time. Security experts call it alert fatigue, and it's genuinely dangerous. When a security tool screams wolf over and over again, when it flags Chrome as ransomware, deletes your shortcuts, invents fake BIOS emergencies, people start tuning out. Teams start moving faster through alerts, start dismissing notifications with less scrutiny, start trusting the tool less. And that's exactly the wrong response to a security system. You need to trust your alarms. The whole point is that when something real happens, you respond immediately and seriously. Defender's false positive problem trains people to do the opposite, to hesitate, to double check, to assume an alert might be fake before assuming it's real. That hesitation in a genuine security emergency could be devastating. The fake BIOS alerts didn't just waste 4 days of IT time. They made every future Defender alert slightly less believable. That's a cost Microsoft never puts in their patch notes. And then there's the direct financial damage. AT staff hours spent chasing fake threats, productivity lost while investigations happen, third-party verification tools that businesses now buy specifically because they don't fully trust Defender's accuracy anymore. One security consultancy estimated that a single large-scale false positive event can cost a mid-sized business anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands in wasted resources. The BIOS incident hit thousands of organizations simultaneously. Do the math on that? Why does Defender keep getting it wrong?
Windows Defender's newer version is inferior to its old one, but Windows Defender results do tend to fluctuate like this quite a bit, which is not something you want from a tool designed to increase.
Here's the thing about Defender that Microsoft doesn't advertise. It's grown massively in scope over the last few years. It used to scan files for known viruses, simple and relatively contained. Now it monitors behavior patterns, checks firmware deep in your hardware, analyzes email links, watches how applications communicate, scans for signs of ransomware activity in real time. The ambition is impressive. The execution keeps exposing cracks. The more things Defender watches, the more opportunities there are for it to get something wrong. Each new detection layer adds new ways to misread normal activity as dangerous. The BIOS checking feature is a perfect example. Comparing firmware version numbers sounds simple, but in reality, different computer manufacturers write version numbers in completely different formats. Defender's code didn't handle all those variations correctly, so it looked at a healthy system, got confused by the version format, and concluded danger where there was none. The problem isn't that Microsoft is trying to do too much. The problem is that they keep shipping these expanded detection systems before they're properly tested against the messy reality of how real computers actually work. And when those systems get it wrong, businesses pay the price while Microsoft issues a quiet patch. What people are actually doing. The tech community has been quietly responding to years of these incidents. Forums are full of IT professionals comparing notes. How to build exception rules that stop Defender from touching certain files. How to add a verification step before acting on any Defender alert. How to essentially put a human layer of judgment on top of Defender because Defender itself keeps getting things wrong. Some businesses have gone further. They're running third-party security tools alongside Defender specifically to get a second opinion before acting on anything Defender flags. They're paying for additional software on top of what they already pay Microsoft, because Defender's accuracy isn't good enough for environments where mistakes cause real damage. That is an extraordinary indictment of a product that comes built into Windows and is presented as your primary line of defense. Individual users are increasingly asking a question that would have seemed alarmist a few years ago. Do I need Windows Defender at all? Not because they want to go unprotected, but because they're weighing what Defender provides against what Defender costs them in false alarms, quarantined files, and productivity lost chasing fake threats. Alternatives like Malwarebytes, ESET, and Bitdefender consistently score better in independent testing for catching real threats while generating fewer false ones. They're not free like Defender, but for people who've been burned by Defender's mistakes, paying for something more accurate starts to feel like the cheaper option. The question Microsoft won't answer after every incident. Microsoft says they'll investigate how it happened and prevent similar issues in the future. They said it after Chrome got flagged as ransomware. They said it after shortcuts got deleted. They said it after the BIOS panic. And then the next incident happens, and they say it again. The BIOS false alarm wasn't just embarrassing, it was a clear signal. When the tool protecting your computer creates emergencies that don't exist, costs businesses millions in wasted time, and then gets a quiet patch with no accountability, something fundamental is broken. Not just in the code, in the entire approach. Trust is the only thing a security product actually sells, and Windows Defender keeps spending that trust faster than it earns it. Whether you switch to something else, add a backup layer, or simply stop taking every Defender alert at face value, the one thing you absolutely cannot afford to do anymore is assume Defender got it right, because the evidence says, more often than anyone admits, it didn't.